Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday evening to you all. I hope you folks are doing fantastic out there tonight and having an awesome start to that weekend. I'm going to kickstart your weekend with a really long video. Guys, no doubt this will be the longest YouTube video, I'm already calling it, that I've ever made on my YouTube channel. Why? We have a ton of weather coming up over the next 10 to maybe 15 days. But between now and the next 10 days, no doubt in my mind, this is going to be one of the most active periods of weather that I've seen in quite some time. I don't know what to compare it to, but folks, this is going to be very active. First off, we'll break down this winter storm for this weekend across the eastern U.S., the mid-Atlantic, the Northeast. We'll get very detailed, just like we've been doing. And we'll kind of talk about what's going on right now because it leads into this weekend. Everything you see on your screen is the energy that's going to move into the eastern U.S. Then we'll break down this very dynamic storm system that's going to take on that negative tilt, which means that's a strengthening storm system, highly dynamic storm system, early to midway next week. This is going to bring strong winds for everybody. Folks, this system is going to affect literally everybody in the lower 48, but especially the central and eastern portions of the country. Someone's going to get a significant severe weather threat. They're already talking about it, the experts from the National Weather Service. Someone's probably going to see a blizzard, and a whole lot of people's going to see a whole lot of rain. And folks, there is a system behind this now that's really gaining some traction in model guidance. We're going to speak on that too. We haven't really done that. But we're going to give you some details on that one too, because the one behind the one next week, it's very confusing. Could bring more of a winter storm than this one coming up early next week. But it's easy to get all of them confused, all the information kind of jumbled up together. But stick with me. Very long video. We're going to break it all down. We'll wrap this video up by talking about this Arctic air mass. Yes, we're going to get an Arctic outbreak also, kind of mixed in with all this stuff, really after the second system into the third system. And some of the country is going to get locked into the freezer. We watch to see how far east it's going to get. We'll speak on that and how we're seeing a lot of energy flying around with a lot of cold air in some of the coldest periods of the year, which is mid to late January. We'll break it all down for you folks. Take advantage of those timestamps for sure. They're there to help you folks. And if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And more importantly, if you folks got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it and so others can do so too. All right, let's get rocking and rolling. There's a lot to talk about. A lot of rain across the deep south. I mean, it's really congealed together, really Mississippi, Alabama, up to Tennessee, seeing the most of it. It's a pretty chilly rain, especially in northern sections of those states I just mentioned. Once you start to get up to the Mississippi River, kind of close to St. Louis, let me know if you're seeing any snow. Very interesting event that happened in Arkansas today. I was dead wrong about Little Rock. I even specifically said in my morning video that Little Rock, I don't think that we're going to see snow. Well, they did. Areas got accumulating snow. It's probably melted for the most part now. A lot of energy just up here. A lot of just pieces of energy in the atmosphere producing a little bit of moisture at the surface. So we do have on and off snows. Very light snow across the upper Midwest and the northern plains. A little bit of energy flying into the Northeast, but if you look right here, this is the beginning stages of our storm system about to move in, and this will eventually reach all the way into southwest North Carolina, and we will start to see some ice in certain areas of southwest North Carolina. But let's go on and talk about watches and warnings. There's a lot of action moving into the Pacific Northwest too. Listen, it's very easy to get everything jumbled up together and why some of these watches and warnings are in place for which storm. We talk about the energy kind of flying around up here in the north central U.S., the upper Midwest. That's prompting these winter weather advisories. We still have lingering winter weather advisories in eastern Kansas. You see all these pink colors? That's winter storm warnings up for the storm system moving in this weekend. The winter storm for the Northeast, the mid-Atlantic. The purple colors, that's winter weather advisories, which, I mean, go across all the way to Winston-Salem, almost to Raleigh, not quite. It doesn't look like. Hendersonville, North Carolina has a winter storm warning for, a tenth of an inch to 3/10 of an inch of an ice. But we'll start mentioning these individual towns soon. Boston, it looks like you're hanging on to a winter storm watch, but you got this area that has a winter storm warning in the pink. You look out here, you have ongoing winter weather advisories across the Rockies. Here in Nevada, seeing winter storm warnings. Higher elevations, going to get a ton of snow. You're going to make up for lost time for not seeing a whole lot of action over the last couple weeks. A lot of wind alerts across Southern California. And you see this teal color here in this area of the Southern Rockies, including Salt Lake City, down here, the northern Arizona areas of New Mexico, Colorado. That's for what's to come. And really what blows my mind, I'll zoom into this area. You see these teal colors right here in Nebraska down to Kansas, a few counties in Iowa. That is winter storm watches up in preparation on what happens next Monday. So it's Friday, right? Friday night. no, 2, 3, 4 days from now, they already have winter storm watches up. They're already preparing people in advance. And I think that's because I don't think there's going to be like a massive amount of snow in this area, like a foot, foot and a half. There could be. But I think it's just because it's going to have that wind element to it. So they're kind of already preparing people for what's to come. And I'm going to be interested to see if we get some blizzard warnings from this. But folks, let's go on and break this down. We're going to talk about what's happening tonight and to tomorrow and this weekend. So we'll start off what's kind of what's closest to us with this system. We'll talk about the Ohio Valley and areas of the Midwest. So as we make our way, and we're in Central Time right now, timestamps are up in these videos. Look right here. This is in Eastern Time. So we're really, this would be this would be 9 p.m. So this is here in the next couple hours for the folks in the Central Time in this area. So we'll get this going. The HRRR model nailed Arkansas this morning. So you got to wonder, is this going to have downstream effects if it's going to nail the forecast as we're getting into the overnight hours into tomorrow morning? All right, I'm going to talk a lot about northern sections of Kentucky and areas of Ohio in this video, but you're getting into the middle of the night. At this point, it's getting into 2, 3 o'clock in the middle of the night tonight, not tomorrow night, tonight. You got some snow moving into Chicago, Peoria, seeing some snow. I think you'll have a period of snow into Indianapolis. Could make it as far north as Green Bay up here in Milwaukee. Could see some light snow. Certainly not a huge event at all for you folks, but this continues to move forward. We're waking up Saturday morning. Well, and if you wake up at about 5 a.m., I think a lot of people don't wake up at 5 a.m. I wake up pretty early. So 5 a.m. is getting kind of late for me. But anyways, you're moving forward here. You're getting into about 7, 8 a.m. It is snowing, based off the HRRR model, very hard in northern Kentucky. I'm talking about Lexington, Frankfort, Cincinnati, Louisville. Cincinnati and these areas down into several northern counties in Kentucky have winter weather advisories now. And in fact, and I'll go back and show it to you, it's kind of because I kind of skipped that, but there's those winter weather advisories in northern Kentucky and southern sections of Ohio. Let's get back to this. So, you still got snow flying around up here in northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin. But man, this could be a wild card area tomorrow morning. It's moving in a very, very favorable time of the day, which is the morning, the coldest time of the day. And you have this upper level low kind of bringing a pocket of its own cold air. And look at this heavy precipitation. Eastern and southeastern Kentucky, all rain. But man, this could be heavy snow that you're waking up to tomorrow morning in northern Kentucky. Remember, I kind of was talking about it, and I was wondering, if they were going to bump up the forecast totals in this area, and they have. But you start to get into later in the morning, 9, 10, 11 a.m. Look at my folks. This is an area of the country that gets kind of gypped sometimes. Southeast Ohio, my folks in western West Virginia, kind of the lower elevations. Dare I say you switch to a period of very heavy snow, very heavy wet, like those flakes like the size of like $50, like cotton balls. That's how this snow will be tomorrow. So all of southern Ohio, I'm not going to call it, but I think you're going to have a period of heavy wet snow. We'll see what happens. And you keep this going into tomorrow afternoon, I think it's going to reach all the way to Columbus, maybe all the way up to Cleveland, a period of moderate to heavy snow, and then this heads on out. And then you could get some leftover energy behind this that adds some additional snowfall totals in this area throughout tomorrow night and to Sunday morning. And then during the day Sunday too, you got kind of the backside energy. Fascinated to see what happens for my friends here in northern Kentucky and southern Ohio. I think someone's going to squeeze in 1 to 3 inches. In fact, the National Weather Service between now and Sunday evening, which adds in some of those additional totals tomorrow night into Sunday. But most of this is showing up for tomorrow morning. I mean, look at this. You got this pocket, and let's see if I think I'm going to have a pretty decent graphic for you folks in this area here in a second. We're going to zoom into each individual areas. But first off, I do want to mention here in kind of northeast and Illinois, and then northwest Indiana, a pocket of 1 to 3 inches of snow is possible. Same thing over here, folks. You got to let me know what you're seeing. I'm going to love to hear it in the comments. If I wake up tomorrow morning and you're switching to that heavy wet snow like you did in Arkansas this morning, I'm going to love to hear about it. I loved the videos out of Arkansas this morning. It was such a beautiful, heavy wet snow, those flakes like the size of bowling balls out there. Not really, but you know what I'm saying. But yeah, southern Ohio, 1 to 3 inches of snow. Northern Kentucky, 2 inches of snow. This could overachieve. And look at my folks in western West Virginia now, starting to get a little bit of snow. We'll see what happens. So a couple graphics here. National Weather Service and Louisville, doesn't really show a great graphic as far as accumulations, but says A quick slushy inch plus of snow accumulations within or near the advisory possible. Frankfurt, Lexington, inch, 2 inches of snow. We'll see what happens. Little graphic from Wilmington, Ohio. All right. 1 to 2 inches of snow in Wilmington, 1 to 2 inches in Cincinnati. Man, if they were calling for 1 to 2 inches of snow at my house, I would be so happy. I'd be ordering pizza, have a pizza party. That's been a joke for me on Twitter the last couple weeks, is that I cannot eat pizza until it snows again at my house. And I'm a big pizza lover, so that's saying a lot. So I've made a pact with that. But anyways, Peebles, 2 to 3 inches of snow. You see the map here. Columbus, you could get more than this in Columbus. I wouldn't bet everything that you got on an inch or less. I would say you could get more. All right, my folks here in the Carolinas, it's closer to home. If you don't know where I live in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm a big winter weather fan, so I'm always looking for the next winter weather event, which hardly ever happens. But anyways, 1 to 2 a.m. tonight, it's around 2 a.m. Eastern time. You get a mixed precipitation kind of area just moves into southwest North Carolina. Some areas it might stay rain. The Smokies, the Smoky Mountains could certainly get a quick burst of snow before a lot of warm air, even at the surface, moves in. So a quick few inches of snow is possible up in the higher elevations of the Smokies. But I think you're going to get just a lot of mixing down here, Asheville, especially south of Asheville, where you get this jump up in elevation. This is always a favored area for ice, especially in cold air damming setups. But, you move. Everybody else is just getting rain. But you start to get into about 2, 3, 4, I would say more so 4 o'clock in the morning. All rain for eastern Kentucky, all rain for this area of western West Virginia. You got this icy mix of freezing rain and sleets and moving into the foothills and the mountains of North Carolina. Once you start to get on the western slopes of these mountains in the Tennessee, I think it's going to stay mainly rain. This is really just where cold air is kind of stuck just east of the higher elevations of North Carolina. North Carolina. I've had some funny comments today talking about you pronounce North Carolina like North Carolina. I don't think I'll ever not do that. It's just how I talk. But you keep going. You're waking up Saturday morning. Look at all this ice across western North Carolina, and it's just plain old rain, kind of in areas of the eastern hills of Kentucky. And you're asking probably, why are you getting mixed precipitation here and snow over here? It's because you've got a weak low moving over this area, and it's bringing a lot of warm air aloft and a lot of warm air at the surface. So you're just struggling to switch to any kind of winter weather. But you keep going, and you're starting to turn into a nasty, slushy mix all the way up into Roanoke, Charlottesville, all these areas. Blacksburg, just a nasty freezing rain, maybe some sleet mixed in, maybe snow at the start mix. And then, by the time you're getting into about midday, this is heading on out. So this really moves into the night, and then right after lunchtime, this system's heading on out. In fact, you can get some thunderstorms potentially in eastern North Carolina. So what are we looking at? Well, latest ice totals are going for like just south of Asheville and Hendersonville, going for maybe a tenth to 3/10 of an inch of ice. That's a lot of ice, especially if you get closer to a 1/4 inch to 3/10 of an inch of ice. That's going to cause these power lines to sag, tree branches to sag. Get up to Hickory, maybe 2/10 of an inch of ice in these areas. Lincolnton, same kind of deal. Maybe a glaze in Shelby. And just, trace a light glaze to maybe a 1/10 of an inch of ice here, like Mount Airy. And then, Virginia, Charlottesville, decent glaze, 1/10 to 2/10 of an inch of ice is possible up in these regions. Not a blockbuster ice storm or anything. We don't want a huge ice storm, but you're certainly going to get some appreciable ice totals. If you don't know the real damage criteria to ice, once you start to get to a 1/4 inch or higher, that's when you really start to have issues. This is a really, really old graphic from the National Weather Service out of Greenville, Spartanburg area. Last time I checked, they didn't have really a great update, but this is what it's showing in this area. Some nasty ice showing up. But I say nasty, but I don't really think it's going to be that bad. But you see these areas in red, that's a 1/4 inch or higher. So this is the area where it could get pretty dangerous with this ice really piling up on those tree branches, causing them to snap, all those things. And, you go on up the road to the National Weather Service in Charleston, West Virginia. For now, I know this is impossible to see. I can't make this screen any bigger from their graphic. No ice expected in Huntington, Charleston, Ripley, Parkersburg. I need to start to, kind of remember some of these names in West Virginia so I can just stop saying Western West Virginia and the higher elevations of West Virginia. But, outside of the higher elevations, you're probably just going to see an inch, maybe 2 inches. I would like to see if this increases as the forecast. I really do. But snowshoe going for about 4 inches of snow, but you're going to get a lot of mixing also. You could get a solid glaze of ice with that also. Move on up the road into the mid-Atlantic. HRRR model moves this in. Says you might start off as a brief mix, maybe snow, sleet tomorrow morning that you're waking up to. Across northern VA, higher elevations of West Virginia, big bursts of snow moves in. I think this could be what we call a frontogenesis kind of setup where you could really start off as some really heavy snow and like Hagerstown, what is it? I think it's Hagerstown here, Western Maryland, both of the panhandles of West Virginia. This is moving into Pittsburgh, trying to start out as all snow, all snow in southern PA. And you keep this going. I mean, it's even snowing kind of here in like northeast Maryland. All rain, I think, for the Delmarva for the most part. And you keep this going and, you start to struggle with mixing even in Hagerstown, even in Harrisburg. But it stays all snow, it looks like, and could get a big thumping of like 5 to 8 inches of snow in western Maryland, and certainly, was it Morgantown? I think that's what it's called, the Mountaineers. I want to say Morganville at first, but several inches of snow is possible in those areas. State College, I think, will get a pretty hefty snowstorm. Nothing too crazy, but I mean, look at Pittsburgh. I mean, what time is it? This is around 1 to 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. Heavy snow falling. That dark blue, that could be that upper level low feature that really, really starts to drop some heavy snow. Pittsburgh can be a wild card. I mentioned many times, Pittsburgh's kind of a city that kind of just gets hoodooed with weather sometimes. I know you're all thinking, what does hoodooed mean? I don't want to use the word screwed, but they kind of get the craps out of the weather. It seems like they don't always get lucky with these snow events, but you could get a surprise tomorrow. Kind of along with maybe the surprise in southern Ohio, northern Kentucky. You keep this going, there's that really heavy burst of snow at the initial part. I think Allentown, you certainly could start out with some snow. I think most of Delaware is all rain. Maybe the extreme northern portion of Delaware starts out as a mix. But you go all the way out to tomorrow afternoon, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Northern New Jersey seeing very, very heavy snow at this point. Scranton, the Poconos, the Catskills. The snowstorm moves into tomorrow afternoon. You keep this going. And, it looks like you start out as rain in the immediate New York City region. Could you get some dynamic cooling? If you do, sometime tomorrow afternoon into early evening, you can make an abrupt switch to heavy snow in New York City. If that occurs, you could get rapid accumulation. I don't care what the surfaces of the concrete is, the ground, the air temperature. If you switch to heavy snow under this pocket of heavy precipitation, despite the temperatures, you could begin to accumulate very quickly, just like you saw in Arkansas today. But you do begin to, mix here in kind of southern and southeast PA. You could switch to just all rain at the end of the storm. And look, you get a few hour period of heavy snow in New York City before this begins to move into southern New England. All right, so many tabs pulled up. How much snow from this? This is what we're looking at. Several inches of snow in these areas. Freeze the screen if you need to. I'm going to try to zoom into some of these areas. Western Maryland, good for 6 to 7 to 8 inches of snow. Portions of the eastern panhandle of West Virginia, kind of the same deal, anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow. Scranton, 7 to 8, 9 inches of snow. State College, 5 to 6 inches of snow. But Philadelphia, I think you're going to stay mainly rain, but you could get a burst of snow. And then, let's zoom into some of these areas. What about the National Weather Service out of Baltimore, Washington? Well, we only have this graphic. So it just kind of zooms into the advisories, Washington, D.C., Baltimore. As of right now, you don't even have an advisory. But, make your way west, Winchester, Hagerstown, Cumberland, Oakland, which will be a favorite area, Petersburg, winter storm warnings in these areas. On up the road a little bit, Pittsburgh, they don't have a great graphic as of now, but they don't even have winter weather advisories in Pittsburgh right now. So it's pretty wild. I think that things could quickly, I think you could all of a sudden get some winter weather advisories for like Parkersburg, up to Pittsburgh, Wheeling, and these areas, Morgantown, where they have nothing. And I think I mentioned Morgantown getting hit hard, but I really think these areas, like right here at the border of Pennsylvania and West Virginia, could switch to some very heavy snow sometime tomorrow. We'll see what happens. National Weather Service out of State College. This is a pretty old graphic. They haven't updated another graphic, but this is what they're saying right now. State College, 6 to 8 inches of snow. Freeze this if you need to. Harrisburg going for 6 to 8 inches of snow. We'll see if that changes. So freeze this if you need to. We'll continue to move northeast, and here's this storm moving in. Huge look at New York. We'll take it all the way out to around 6-7 p.m. tomorrow night. Finger Lakes region, heavy snow. Southern tier, heavy snow. This is trending up to Buffalo, where you could get a period of moderate to heavy snow tomorrow evening. Albany, heavy snow falling. The Valley region, Berkshires, Poconos, Catskills, northern New Jersey, getting hit very hard with really heavy snow. If anybody's going to jackpot, it's wild. Jackpot area is going to be just north of the rain-snow line, and whoever stays snow. So not just north of the rain-snow line where you start as snow, go to rain, then back to snow. Whoever is just north of that line where it stays snow, that's where you'll have your heaviest precipitation, your heaviest moisture, and it's cold enough to stay snow the whole entire duration. But you keep this going, and Berkshire's getting blasted. Connecticut, Rhode Island, heavy snow tomorrow evening. You're mixing in New York City, but just north it's snowing. But it could be a period tomorrow evening where you mix, even in northern New Jersey, maybe all the way up to Scranton. Certainly in Connecticut, you might mix. And then what does this upper level low do back behind this? As you could have a feature behind this that enhances the snowfall again as we're waking up Sunday morning. You think the storm's pulling out, then you can have one last burst of snow Sunday morning in New York City and across southern New England. One last burst of snow, and this is as far out as the HRRR model goes, and it's still snowing up here in eastern New York State, Vermont, and New Hampshire. What about snow in this area? This is what the forecast is showing. Pretty decent snowstorm for New York. Even some snow is trending all the way up into the Adirondacks. Buffalo, maybe a couple inches of snow. Binghamton, 7 to 8 inches of snow. Albany, kind of the same thing. Graphic in this region. This is from like 12, 13 hours ago, but they're still saying, I think the reason they haven't really updated is just because there hasn't been a lot of changes, but 6 to 8 inches of snow in Albany. Berkshires, Pittsfield, in Western Mass, 8 to 12. This might have changed, but there's some pockets of 12 to 16 inches of snow in this orange. So they are thinking someone's going to get a foot and a half of snow. So it's a significant event, guys. A little bit further up, zooming in my folks in southern New England. I think this snow really starts to crank up. Basically, the snowstorm for all of southern New England, probably late tomorrow afternoon and evening. I think if you got anything to do and you need to go do it, I don't think this is going to cripple you guys. But, if you don't really want to drive in the snow, I would get out and about probably tomorrow morning all the way through about noon, and then I would hunker down for the evening for the rest of the weekend. But look at this rain switching to heavy wet snow based off the HRRR model in the northern coastline and shoreline of Long Island. But you're going to struggle with mixing in Boston. Now, the HRRR model says you struggle with mixing, and then by the time you get into 10, 11 p.m. tomorrow night, you switch to, look at this dark blue, very heavy snow in Boston. Boston. Worcester. Do y'all call it the Worcester Hills? Worcester Hills? I think I've been seeing it W-U-H-S-T-A-H. Worcester Hills. Anyways, you guys in Central Mass going to hit pretty good with this. Nothing you guys can't handle. 8 to 12 inch snowfall event, very heavy wet snow. As we're getting into the middle of the night tomorrow night, look at the pink starting to show up. That's a mix of rain and snow. You start to deal with mixing issues along the coastal regions of southern New England, certainly out here in southeast Mass. And look, it's starting to creep into Boston, and I think you'll begin to mix with Boston. Might switch to flat-out rain. And then this upper-level low cranks up, and then you get a last back-end thumping of snow Sunday afternoon. This is as far as the HRRR model goes. If you continue to keep this going, snow continues to funnel through southern New England, New Hampshire, and Vermont. And, I really think this could be a decent event for the southern half of New Hampshire and Vermont if you're a snow fan. And certainly tucked into the southern sections of Maryland will get hit with several inches of snow and stay all snow. I think you can mix all the way into southeast New Hampshire with this. And then we look at our friends in here in Maine, and we're going to show you this, the zoomed-in snowfall accumulations for southern New England. Maine, we only can look at the European here, but it does move that heavy snow as we're getting into Sunday morning into southern Maine, makes it all the way to the down east areas. We'll see how north this gets all the way up to Caribou, central northern Maine. For now, it doesn't show a big event. But getting into Sunday afternoon, it's snowing pretty heavily down here near like Portland, Augusta. You guys getting a lot of snow, and then our friends in Nova Scotia could get hit. I want to show my peeps out here in Canada too, and I'm sorry I didn't have this pulled up on the fly, but let's see. What is this storm? I knew it was going to do that. Here we go. What's the show out here for Nova Scotia? I think you folks, Yarmouth, could get hit pretty good. I don't think, New Brunswick's going to get much of this, but I think the extreme southeast areas and basically all of the eastern areas of Nova Scotia could get a pretty good snowstorm from this. I think that's about it, though, in Canada. But snowfall forecast from this, just a broad look. I think several inches of snow will fall in southern Maine, several inches of snow in southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, and then we're going to zoom into our friends here in southern New England. Boston, 4 to 6 inches, Springfield, 6 to 8 inches. They always do a fantastic job in the National Weather Service at Boston and keeping updated. But you're going to struggle with mixing issues in this area. But now they're going for 46 inches. Lawrence, 8 to 12. Here it is. Great graphic. Shows all of southern New England. Hartford, 6 to 8. New Haven, 4 inches. But New London, look, 1 to 2 inches. But you go out the road to Hartford, 6 to 8 inches of snow. You're going to struggle out here. And Martha's Vineyard, Cape Cod, all these areas. You're going to struggle just because of the warm waters off the coastline. That's it. That's all I got for that storm system. Let's move on to the next one. Key messages for January 8th through 11th, major winter storm. This is definitely going to be a major winter storm for some people. I don't think it'll be for a huge broad area, but it could be. It could be. So stay tuned with me. But this graphic was released yesterday. And folks, what's wild to me is I've never seen graphics like this. Potential wind hazard areas, this is new. But, in the yellow says high winds possible, at least a 40% chance. And the orange, that's a greater chance for damaging 50-mile-per-hour wind gust in this area in the orange. That covers millions of people across the eastern U.S., from Atlanta, Georgia, all the way up to Maine. Pretty wild. So let's talk about it. This thing's diving down. This is our main piece of energy. We're getting into Sunday morning. Look at this thing diving down. By the time it gets into the southern plains, it's already taken on that neutral tilt. It goes from tilting like this, right, to tilting like that, which means we have a vertical kind of look to this. This is vertically tilted. That means it's taken on a neutral tilt. You keep this going. Watch how it begins to bow off to the right there. This is getting into midway next week. So at this point, this is tilting negatively, which means it's strengthening, it's highly dynamic, and is an extremely powerful storm system. This continues just to make its way across the Northeast, bringing all kinds of impacts. High winds, rain, yeah. So let's start off by looking at the western U.S. first, because I did leave you guys hanging a little bit over the last couple of days. We'll start off tomorrow morning. This system's already moving in. Heavy snow in the Sierra Nevada, the Olympic Mountains, moves into the Rockies, northern Cal, Sierra Nevada begins to see lots of snow tomorrow evening into the overnight hours. Light to moderate snows across the Rockies, Nevada, Idaho, western Montana. Some areas light, some areas moderate, but you continue to keep this going. Look at the snow cranking up Sunday morning across all of Utah just about. This energy drops down. At the same time, another area of energy is beginning to enter the picture in the Pacific Northwest, but this cranks up for the southern Rockies. A pretty hefty winter storm across these areas that just saw one. And then there's another area early next week moving into the Pacific Northwest, reloading that snowpack up here again with a lot of rain in the lower elevations, a lot of snow in the higher elevations. What about snow between now and Monday morning? I know this is kind of small on your screen, but the common theme here is the Rockies, the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, the Olympic Mountains, all these areas, northern Rockies, all the Rockies are going to get accumulating snow. Some areas feet of snow. And this is going to continue. It'll continue to add up. And this is the area that's going to see a really nasty Arctic blast that we're pretty confident is going to happen. And we'll get to that later on down the video. There's going to be some gusty winds with this system too. This is the blend of all models. I like to show this at this range. I wouldn't say this range. It's only 24, 48 hours out. But it's just a good, more conservative look. Because sometimes the global models overdo these winds. I think there could be blizzard conditions. I'm surprised they haven't issued blizzard warnings. I don't know what the criteria of a blizzard warning is up here in the Sierra Nevada, but look at these winds and these higher elevations, pushing hurricane force winds. The valleys really, not much winds at all, but up against the coastline, as we're getting into like Sunday morning, My guy Ron down here in San Diego, very gusty winds Sunday. And then the winds really kick up across the southwest down here. And then they kind of lessen ahead of another system across the Pacific Northwest. Things kind of simmer down Sunday evening across the area. All right, let's talk about the central U.S. with this storm system. We'll start off by showing you incredible winter storm watches, 72 hours out or more before this event. These winter weather advisories is what's going on right now. This winter storm watches, guys, across Kansas, Nebraska, that's because of what's coming early next week. Pretty impressive. It really is. But moving past that, let's compare some model guides. We'll start off by looking at the European, and we'll kind of do what we've been doing. Look at the European starting off Sunday afternoon. If you're confused about the time frames, look up here. Sunday, the 7th January. 21Z, that's Zulu time. Don't focus too much on that. That stands for Sunday afternoon. There it is, 3 p.m. Central Time, which is the main area we're talking about here. We're starting to get into Monday morning. There comes the precipitation, quickly overspreading with a 998 millibar low in the Panhandle of Texas. You immediately get some heavy snow cranking up across southeast, South Dakota, western Nebraska, eastern Iowa. Eastern Nebraska, western Iowa. I do apologize. You keep this going, you're getting deeper into Monday afternoon. Winter storm ongoing across the Panhandle of Oklahoma, maybe Texas. How much snow are you going to actually get from this? With a 994 millibar low going over Oklahoma, this will be all rain for you folks. But look, it's trying to show a mixture in northern Arkansas, southwest Missouri. We'll see if that happens. But focusing on this is when the potential for a blizzard gets going. Omaha, Lincoln, northern sections of Kansas, maybe Goodland starts to see some snow, extreme northwest sections of Missouri. And you keep this going, and you're starting to get deep into Monday evening. Rain switching to snow across eastern Kansas. Rain switching to snow across the northern half of Missouri. You go from rain to heavy snow in Kansas City sometime next Monday night and Tuesday morning. Then what happens over here? It shows all rain for St. Louis, at least initially. Starting to show snow in Chicago. Maybe snow initially in Indianapolis. The Euro has trended a little bit towards the GFS, a little bit colder of a system, but not quite there. They're starting to kind of meet in the middle somewhere. Both of them are kind of shifting towards each other. Just light snow up here in the upper Midwest. Nothing too crazy. You keep going. We're still raining in St. Louis. Heavy snow in Kansas City. Springfield switches to heavy snow here. Kind of another low forms, a 988 millibar low. A lot of winds associated with this. All rain across the southern Midwest, the Mississippi Valley region, central Mississippi Valley region. And it's snowing like crazy in northern Missouri. All-out winter storm going on, and like Quincy, like snowing in Des Moines, snowing in Rockford, snow's moving into Chicago, snow's moving into Michigan. You keep this going, and look at this. Thing is on the Euro, it stays all rain until to the tail end of the storm Tuesday evening for like St. Louis, where you finally do switch to snow. But it could be heavy, and the track could be totally different. Stays mainly snow in Chicago. And then this heads on out. Okay. What about the GFS for the central U.S.? Same kind of thing. They're very confident in this happening right here across the central plains. Snow kind of gets going across areas of Nebraska, South Dakota. GFS, it's a lot. I wouldn't say a lot, but it's a tick south with a 996 low. Heavy snow falling back here in Dodge City, almost into Woodward. Amarillo points north, snow's falling. Heavy snowstorm across Kansas, eastern sections of Nebraska, Lincoln, Omaha seeing snow at this point. You just start out as snow in Kansas City and remain all snow. And then same thing with St. Louis, start out as rain, then you could potentially go to heavy snow. And this is the interesting portion of this storm right here on the GFS. At this point, you're early Tuesday morning of next week. Two main sections going on. It looks like you have another low forming down here, another low over here, enough cold air on top where you're seeing very heavy snow across Illinois, areas of Indiana, Peoria to Indianapolis, Bloomington, those areas. Snow's missing you to the south. Don't get bummed out in Chicago if you're a snow fan. We have a long ways to go to really fine-tune this. But it looks like you have two areas of very heavy snow, this one and this one off the GFS. And this one behind it could be a blizzard. 989 millibar low going into the Boot Hill, Missouri. Could produce a lot of winds even on the cold side of this. And look how long this lasts. Moves in Monday afternoon in St. Louis, for example, lasts through Monday, the rest of the day, Monday night, Tuesday morning. Then you have a 984 millibar low just east of St. Louis with very heavy snow trying to get going. And that'll be kind of the secondary portion of the storm. We need to figure this one out. It's a tough one. And if I missed any towns and communities, I'm going to do that a lot. It's just impossible to mention everything. I'll do exactly what I did for the winter storm this weekend for the Northeast when we get closer to this storm that I did with that, with just zooming into these individual regions from the National Weather Service. So what about the National Weather Service forecast? Well, it only goes out to Monday evening, but it's already showing accumulations, a swath of accumulating snow in southeast Colorado, Panhandle of Oklahoma, and the northern sections, like deja vu in this area than what you saw a couple of days ago. And then we're already starting to see forecasted amounts of over 6 inches of snow right where Iowa, South Dakota, and Nebraska meet, kind of right in here. Already calling for a few inches of snow in like Omaha, Lincoln. So this will increase. Snow forecast up here. You're getting your snowpack back up here, but I think you'll get a lot of it back soon. What about other models comparing this? Let's look at the European. This is in 48-hour segments. So you're going to see areas of blue and purple kind of appear, then disappear. And I'm doing that for a reason because some of this accumulation is kind of combining with one another. But watching this portion of your screen, this is the latest Euro. That area begins to emerge right here, and we're getting a Monday afternoon, Monday evening, and look at that signal. Tuesday morning, look at this 48-hour signal across Kansas, areas of Nebraska, Iowa, northern Missouri, all the way up into here into southwest sections of Minnesota, southeast South Dakota. And look at the signal emerging across these areas right in here, across the Ohio Valley and the Midwest region. Watch how this signal begins to move northeast. And look at that. I really like this area north of St. Louis, maybe into Chicago. Right in here, someone's going to get a foot of snow. I really like northern Missouri through kind of northern portions of Illinois into sections also of Michigan. But look at this area. The snow signal begins to move into this area Tuesday into Wednesday morning. Euro showing a pretty big, substantial winter storm here, a major winter storm, no doubt. And then the signal heads on out, and then we get another signal behind it that we'll talk about here in a second. What about the GFS? Here comes the GFS model. There it is. Highest confidence area right here. Everything's showing snow falling in that portion. But here comes a GFS behind this. Another area. There's like 3 or 4 areas with this gigantic system with multiple lows kind of forming at the base of this trough. But there's a signal shooting across Illinois, beginning to make its way into Indiana. And it shows it well, how there's 2 segments. One right here dumping on this run of the GFS. Remember, when I discuss these models, these are not forecast amounts. It's just comparing model guides. We'll get closer to the storm bill to forecast some amounts. But you got this segment over here and this segment over here, getting into Tuesday morning. And then you're starting to get into Tuesday afternoon. This signal begins to overspread this area. And the same thing with the European, guys. It likes this area here in Missouri, Kansas into Missouri into Illinois. Nebraska is going to get snow too, but who's going to get the epicenter of the heaviest snow? Man, a few tweaks and St. Louis could get a huge storm. But man, Kansas City could potentially get a big one. Up to Chicago, big winter storm. And then this signal heads on out. All right, moving forward. Look at the winds with this. Not too bad. Look at these strong winds down to Mexico. Southern sections of New Mexico also. But look as this system begins to eject. Look at these strong winds coming east of the Rockies in eastern Colorado. 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts off the blend of all models, which I will tell you guys is a very conservative model. It blends all the model guides together. But this has increased since the last time I showed you this. Getting into Monday afternoon, folks, look at this. And this is predicted wind gusts. So the wind gusts are going to remain on your screen. This is wind gust swaths and miles per hour, obviously. But look at the southern high plains. I mean, even where you don't get a whole lot of moisture down here, 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts. But this is the concerning part. In some of these areas, it's going to be snowing. So while I do think you're going to get a blizzard possible, I think in these areas where you'll see a blizzard, won't necessarily get the heaviest snow. I think the areas where you could see a blizzard is probably going to get, be in Nebraska, maybe Kansas, maybe into Iowa. But I think this will be an area where you get like a swath of 4 to 8 inches of snow somewhere. But we'll fine tune that, right? So moving into the eastern U.S., here comes the system. I want to make sure we're not looking at the wrong storm like we did this morning. Getting into Monday morning, look at all this moisture moving into areas of the western deep south. This is all rain down here, and this is thunderstorms down here in the deep south. But once again, deja vu, starting off a little bit of ice in the foothills and mountains of North Carolina, next Monday night to Tuesday morning. And then we kind of talked about the snow and for Indiana, but Ohio. This has been a state that hasn't gotten a lot lately. Hopefully you'll get some in southern Ohio, but you take it to Tuesday morning. This is when the brunt of this storm begins to move in, and we'll stop it here from the Euro. All rain for Kentucky, Tennessee points south. Starting off with some heavy snow in the northern half of Ohio, northern half of Indiana, and certainly up here in Michigan. And then higher elevations of West Virginia, icy mix, snow. Maybe start out some snow here and, kind of the higher hills of PA, but we'll see. This is when that 984 millibar low begins to crank up, and there we need to watch for another blizzard potential right in here. Just a lot of light, moderate snow up here in the Great Lakes region. And then we keep this going. Just a lot of rain across the eastern U.S. So all these areas, you're going to see a lot of snow. I think will completely get wiped out by this rain. But don't worry, because if you're a winter weather fan, it could be replenished soon. I'll talk more on that here in a second. Areas of Ontario, Quebec, seeing a sizable winter storm. All rain for most of the mid-Atlantic, all of the mid-Atlantic. Could start out as some snow across the interior sections of New England as we're getting to next Tuesday, Wednesday morning. And then we'll have to watch this back-end energy behind this trough. Could get light precipitation with enough cold air aloft to maybe the Cumberland Plateau, areas of Tennessee, Kentucky, certainly the higher elevations of the southern Alps, starts to switch back to snow or from rain to snow. But I think the Great Lakes region could see a major winter storm from this. It's just trying to figure out who. UP of Michigan, northern Michigan, lower Michigan, maybe western side of Michigan. We got to figure that out. But look at this back-end energy flying across midway next week. So we got back-end snow behind this. Heck, you might hang on to all snow up here in Maine. We'll see what happens. What about the GFS? Here it comes. Same evolution. Heavy snow a little bit further south. Indianapolis gets hit by several inches of snow right off the dot getting into Tuesday. Same thing from the middle of Ohio up to Cleveland, Detroit, heavy snow. Showing ice right here too, And we've already talked about Missouri, but look at this icing setup Tuesday morning across the southern and central Alps. Same areas that we'll see ice with the storm this weekend. We keep this going. Starting off as just a wintry mess across the interior northeast, kind of like the European. Starting off as accumulating snow across southern Ontario Tuesday afternoon. You start off as heavy snow across the Ohio Valley, then you switch to rain because this low moves right over the area and brings a lot of warm and moist air into the atmosphere. Look at this. Just going to show a lot of lows until this really kind of comes together. But down here, this is just heavy rain and storms. And we're going to talk more on that here in a second. We'll have a separate segment for that, for you folks concerned about severe weather, and rightfully so, because this severe weather threat looks significant. But look at this back-end energy. Rain switching to snow, getting into Tuesday night and Wednesday morning across the Tennessee region, the Mid-South in general. We have to watch this feature. The GFS is much more aggressive with this Wednesday morning. This could dump some light accumulations across the Ohio Valley, Mid-South. We got to watch that. There's so many little features, so many little micro features with this. What about the snowfall from the European? We'll show this in 24-hour segments here. Okay, not 48 hours. But our snow system moving out. Here comes the European, and here comes what it is showing. Shows a quick couple inches to several inches across the Ohio Valley, certainly the Midwest, even a few inches across the Alps. And I'm sorry for clearing my throat. I've just been talking for 45 minutes straight, and my voice is starting to get hoarse. But Great Lakes region, several inches of snow. You continue to move into Wednesday morning. It wants to dump a lot of snow over New Hampshire and Vermont, areas of Maine, the Adirondacks. Not a whole lot in this area, but the main signal flies over the Midwest into the Great Lakes region into Canada. Could be a sizable event, a big event. Struggling with that word for some reason. Up in Maine, several inches of snow. Could get a lot from this. And this moves on out. And then there's that back-end snow signal from this right in here. Keep moving. You look at the GFS. Same thing. Same kind of thing right here. Dumps a quick several inches of snow into Monday night and Tuesday across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. I think this could potentially switch to rain, and there's your secondary system behind this. All right, this kind of moves, interior northeast snow. There's a signal behind it with the back-end snow. You see how that pops up on your screen right there? That's that back-end signal that we'll watch. But it really likes this skinny signal for heavy snow through central Missouri to the Great Lakes region, up into, eastern Canada. And then there's that back-end energy kind of mid to late next week flying through the Mid-South, Ohio Valley, and the Alps region. And then this heads on out. So, what about winds? Winds could be pretty significant. This is all the winds from this system that we're going to deal with this weekend. This is from the one coming. You'll notice the colors begin to emerge on your screen. I mean, already across the deep south, 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts possible. And then you just keep this going. And I mean, guys, there's going to be in the coastal regions, you know, you're going to get 40, 50, 60 mile per hour wind gusts up the spine of the eastern seaboard. And I think, you know, the Delmarva region, Jersey Shore, Long Island, certainly southern New England, the coastal regions of Maine. You even got to watch this system, certainly for Atlantic Canada, could be in for some nasty winds. This could cause issues, power outages, and just a lot of rain, saturated grounds. And one thing I also haven't showed you folks is rain, and I'm about to show you here in a second, but they already have a moderate risk for flash flooding up for some of these areas. And we'll talk more on that in the coming videos, but they already have a concerning risk of flash flooding mixed with these winds in areas of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. But look at these stripes of heavy rain, heavy winds in this region. Widespread 30 to 40 mile per hour wind gusts across the area. You mix this with a lot of heavy rain like this, you're going to have issues. So this is the system this weekend. You move forward. Look how all this rain adds up in this area. This takes us all the way through Thursday morning of next week. So 6 days of rain, well, really 5.5 days of precipitation. Some of this falling in the form of snow, obviously, up here. But this is just precipitation in general. Down here in the deep south, southeast is all rain. And this is probably just more conservative, too, but just a soaker. Typical El Nino type stuff. A lot of rain, guys, coming for sure. What about a severe weather threat? Great graphic here from the National Weather Service Storm Prediction Center. Basically from Victoria, Houston, all the way to Panama City, almost to Tallahassee, all the way up to like Hattiesburg, Alexandria, almost up the Meridian, and everybody in between. There is a slight risk of severe storms in this region. That means there's a 25% risk, a 15% risk of severe storms within 25 miles in any given location in this yellow area. And folks, it keeps going. This is for Tuesday, which could be a bigger event. There's a good chance I'll probably be chasing Tuesday. But I mean, folks, this goes from Arcadia, Florida, Sarasota, all the way up to Greenville, North Carolina, Newborn, Morehead City, all the way back to like Dothan, Alabama, all the way up to Macon, Columbia, includes Myrtle Beach, Savannah, all these areas. Same criteria. In the yellow, that means there's a 15% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in any given location. We will fine-tune the threats when we get closer, but I'm already going to tell you right off the dot, one of the biggest threats with this is going to be damaging winds. But what I'm about to show you here, whoever ends up having the best overlapping dynamics of kinematics and thermodynamics will have the best tornado threat, no doubt. And you look at the moist sector moving in, and we're getting into Monday morning, getting into Monday afternoon. Dew points, moisture already beginning to rise. When you get dew points in the 60s, that begins to get supportive of severe weather, especially in January. You keep this going, and you know, this moist sector really isn't, based off the European, isn't nothing too crazy. You get a really skinny corridor, really small kind of compact corridor of dew points above 60 degrees. You get north of this, you get dew points in the 50s, which aren't really super supportive of severe weather, but you still could get some damaging winds with these storms. This is the concerning area, and you keep this going throughout Monday night. Tuesday morning, the entire state of Florida has dew points above 60 degrees. And then you're starting to get into Tuesday afternoon. It's about midday Tuesday. This is an area I want to watch. You got dew points pulling up into almost the low 70s in South Georgia. And you just got a very broad moist sector spanning across a lot of areas. I mean, millions of people in Florida. But of course, you get down to the southern half of Florida, you're going to be displaced from certain other dynamics that you need for severe weather. But I mean, you keep this going, and you know, this gets all the way into eastern North Carolina. Dew points quickly rise. A big old moist sector as we get into Tuesday evening moves through eastern North Carolina, and I think we're going to have a severe weather threat there too. And then immediately behind it, the atmosphere clears out with the trough moving through. Now, the Cape levels in response to these dew points, that's the one question mark with this event. This event would be an outbreak, and it still could be. of severe weather if the Cape levels were higher. But you have this pool of storm energy you see here with Cape levels 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram way out in the Gulf of Mexico. This is not really reaching inland, so that's good news. But a lot of times when we get in the range of these short-range model guidance, this trends further north. And, you start to get into Tuesday midday, you start to get a little bit of Cape. And, folks, I'm going to tell you, if you get Cape, above 500 joules per kilogram with those dew points and then with the climatic environment I'm about to show you, it's going to spell trouble. It really is. I take a sounding out of the Charleston area, and there it is. Makes sense. You got a looping hodograph. You got temperatures around 68, dew points in the 60s, and it says Tor hazard. Okay, so you got veering with height, and you have an environment right in here that supports tornadoes already in areas of South Carolina, eventually moving into North Carolina. Pivotal weather is very finicky here. So, you look at the wind field with this, and this is the mid-level jet coming down, low associated with it, multiple surface lows kind of ongoing. And this mid-level jet begins to enhance across the southern plains, and then as it moves into the mid to deep south, we're starting to get into Tuesday. And look at this moving over Georgia, eastern Tennessee, all the way to the panhandle of Florida. This is a 100 to 125 knot mid-level jet with an associated low-level jet that's probably pushing well over interstate speed a mile above our heads. So think of this as a ton of kinetic fuel, a ton of wind fuel in the atmosphere to support a severe weather threat. This creates a lot of lift in the atmosphere, and it creates damaging winds that mix the surface. And then this turns around Tuesday night and Wednesday morning and creates a dangerous wind threat across the entire eastern seaboard. So, yeah. There's another system behind this, and we're coming up on an hour. We might go well over an hour, but another system behind this, folks. We're saying bye to our system next week, and then here comes another storm signal. A little quick hitting piece of energy maybe moves across the Midwest, Great Lakes, and then here's this other storm signal. One thing I'll mention, because this is 6 to 7, 8 days out, this signal will go back and forth, but this is the latest Euro, another strong low, colder air kind of funneling down, so this low's pushed further south, and this shows a significant winter storm across northern Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma, these areas that kind of miss. But then this low begins to eject and then turns into a big winter storm across the Midwest and then the Ohio Valley, and then this continues to cut and turns into another inland hitter for the Northeast. And then it heads on out. And there's more energy behind us. So, there's a storm off the Euro. This would be a strong storm too, a 985 millibar low. You get a little bit closer to this. This is a hefty storm system. I knew it was going to do that. Here we go. This is a hefty storm system behind this. If something like this was to happen, this would be another powerful winter storm. What about the Euro? Same thing. We say bye to our system next week, and then we get into at the end of next week, right? This is another system already entering. Now, the low is a little bit further north on the GFS. A lot of cold air funneling in, Arctic air beginning to ooze into the Rockies. There's that 984 millibar low. From the third system, big-time winter storm across the Midwest, Great Lakes region. And, it just cuts. But it's just another heavy-hitting winter storm across the Midwest, Great Lakes region. And we have to watch this low. I could see this low trending south. It depends on how fast this Arctic air moves down on top of this low. This could suppress this further south, bringing more people further south, more winter weather. But it's the same signal. You look at this time frame on the GFS. This is next Friday morning. You compare that with... dang it, here we go. We compare that with the European 162 hours out, and the same thing, except the Euro is just starting to get this storm going. No, in fact, this is next Friday morning. So this is it on the Euro. This is it on the GFS. The only difference is, because there's a storm there, there's no difference there, is that the low is further north. It's a heavy signal, guys. And the same thing, we'll look at 24-hour increments. Look at the signal that comes in behind the second storm. This is your third signal. And there it is. It's a little further south. There's your signal right into here. And then it starts to get into next weekend, and then it moves on out. Another signal brewing behind that. Dare I say storm number 4? European for the third system. Here it is. I mean, look. It's a pretty big signal for the Midwest, the Great Lakes region, even the Ohio Valley, even into the interior Northeast. So this is something we got to watch. And, moving past that, I know my folks in the Southeast who, stayed patient through this entire video and was like, are you going to show us any goods? I said a couple days ago, and I've said it a lot on social media, we're going to miss before we hit a lot in the Southeast and my folks in the South and even areas into the Mid-Atlantic who are not going to get anything from the storm coming up this week. And we're going to miss before we hit. But man, things are setting up for something big in late January. So let's talk about what we do know. Nice graphic that was issued yesterday from the National Weather Service, and it says widespread Arctic air outbreak anticipated across much of the lower 48 through mid-January. Here's a nice discussion that they talk here, and here's another one that they issued. Bitter cold and heavy precipitation anticipated. This was issued today. Updated. This was updated from the last one. Anticipated across much of the lower 48 through mid-January. And I know you can't see this graphic, but I mean, you can freeze this and probably read this discussion on your screen, but it talks about it. It talks about what we kind of been teasing at. And folks, we look at the National Weather Service, the Climate Prediction Center, 6 to 10 days, the 11th to the 15th of January, issued today. It's maxed out in this area. They're fully confident an Arctic outbreak is coming. I mean, folks, mid to late January is the coldest, for most people, it's the coldest period of the year. And we're going to see anomalies that are going to be so much colder than average. I know you're looking at this in the eastern U.S., you're thinking, sheesh, here we go, warmer than average temperatures. There was a lot of people that called it a couple weeks ago that we're going to have a mid-January warm-up. And this is it. Do I think we're going to get temperatures widespread in the 70s? I don't think so. But I think that we will have a period of slightly above average temperatures. Now you move to the 8 to 14 day range. This is starting to knock on the doorstep of the eastern U.S., 13th to the 19th. This will move a little bit further east if confidence grows that this is going to move eastward here in the next 10 to 15 days. The thing that gets me the most excited about us folks in the Southeast, because this is, I know probably most of my viewers are in the Southeast, but just in the eastern U.S. in general, they issued this today. Weeks 3 to 4 temperature outlook through the 20th to the 2nd of January. Folks, that is the heart of winter. You got below average temperatures predicted for all these areas, not just the Southeast, but I mean areas in the Ohio Valley, and the Mississippi Valley, the Mid-South. This is good to see. And you're going to mix this with another graphic I'm going to show you here in a second. We're mainly talking about temperatures. How is this pattern like unfolding? There's our major storm system early next week, not the third one. There's going to be a third one in here somewhere also at the base of this trough. But you got ridging that builds. Let's go this in time. You got ridging that's building all the way up into Alaska. You see this? This ridge building up into here. Ridge building up into this area. You got ridging up into this region right here too. This dislodges cold air down here and creates a buckle in the jet stream down here. This brings in a lot of Arctic air from Canada and the Arctic. And this is going to spill into the western and central U.S. We are highly confident that's going to happen. And most things point that it's going to get to the eastern U.S. But that's what's going on. Blocking up in the Arctic, making this jet dig, cold air associated with this mega trough digging out west. You keep this going. As we watch it, we start to get a week out, then we get 10 days out. And if you notice, this is a huge signal. It's like a zonal looking trough. You continue to get blocking up here. This is a huge signal for continuous Arctic air, very cold air across the middle of the country mid-month. And you're probably going to have an active storm track down here. This makes me wonder. And then as you get past 10 days out, the trough digs even more into the east. And this would be a heck of a setup. See these blue colors? This is lower pressure. This is storminess and coldness in the eastern and central U.S. Just basically a jet dig in the atmosphere. This is a solid pattern for winter weather in the eastern U.S. So what does this look like as far as temperatures? You're going to see the Barney colors come up on your screen. This is a European ensemble. You would think, as crazy as this looks, this would be an operational run, but it's a European ensemble run. One of the most reliable model runs in the world, if not the most reliable one. And there it goes. It shows it well. It shows the warm-up coming, after the 10th of January. But look at this Arctic air diving downward, moving eastward. Folks, this is maxed out colors in here. This is 30 degrees below average in the middle of January in Montana. I can't tell you how cold that is, but it's colder than your freezer, I tell you that. It's colder than your deep freezer out in the shed holding in all the deer meat or whatever you got going out there. This is extremely cold, and it's not just in this area. I mean, I'm talking about Seattle, Oregon, cold in California, and then you keep this going. Look at the central areas of the country. Look at the Barney colors showing up. And then it just continues. It's a long duration Arctic air event across the northern Rockies. But look how it begins to flex and move eastward through about 10 days. And folks, we don't need all this crazy Arctic air to get a winter storm in the middle to late January across a lot of areas of the country. But you start to get past 10 days, and this begins to ooze into the central and eastern U.S. And I mean, those greens and kind of this shades of blue right in here, I mean, that's 10 to 15 to 20 degrees below average in mid to late January, with precipitation, which I'm about to show you, forecasted to be above average. It's wild. Let's look at the blend of all models. How cold could these temperatures get? Sorry, I've been talking for now over 60 minutes, an hour. I knew it was going to go this long. But this is predicted low temperatures from the blend of all models. And I mean, I'm not going to try to mention every city out west, but this is next Monday, next Tuesday. Here comes the Arctic air. Folks, Karen, get ready. If you don't know who Karen is, that's my friend up here in Montana that reports. Look at these well below zero temperatures. You know, we were talking about a couple weeks ago how Canada was roasting. It's no longer roasting anymore. We're getting into like next Friday morning. Look at these cold temperatures. Look at this. Very, very cold temperatures moving across the area. So I know I went through that kind of quick, but, you know, this is going to change. You know, next Tuesday morning, next Wednesday morning, Thursday morning, the 11th, Friday morning, about 6 days out. Look at these projected low temperatures from the blend of all models, which is, by the way, going to be conservative. Negative 10 to 20 degrees below zero in these regions, starting to get into single digits all the way into Texas. Eventually get single digits into Oklahoma, across Iowa, Missouri. And, yeah, we got to figure out what this is going to do. You cap it all off by talking about precipitation and the activity coming. 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook with all that cold air that we just showed you in the central and western portion of the country. Above average precipitation pretty much showing everywhere, whether you're going to be cold or not. But the frame I watch is the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook, 13th through the 19th. This is at the point where a lot of cold air is oozing down. And you got a chance of above average temperatures with above average precipitation with below average temperatures. And it's the recipe for a lot of winter weather. A lot of winter weather, folks. So, you know, last thing you'll look at is the 3 to 4 week precipitation outlook. Same thing we look with the temperatures issued today. Remember I showed you this outlook here? A below average temperatures forecasted in this period right here. You combine that with that, and folks, that screams a winter storm across the southeast as we get to the end of January, early February. And guys, that's always been the golden time period that we've talked about for so long for the southeast. So hang tight. And I'll throw you a bone to wrap all this video up to get people excited, but please don't tell everybody it's going to snow. You know, we start to get past 7 days. We get into the 10-day range. Here's storm number 4, which the Euro does not agree with. But this would be your 4th storm with a ton of Arctic air coming in behind it. And look at this storm system. Wild looking, right? But this Arctic air on the GFS finally comes east. And look at this winter storm across the deep south. You finally get a fantasy run. It finally throws us a bone, starting to get to the 19th to the 20th. And look, I got snow in my woods, my neck of the woods, as we are getting into kind of the 3rd to 4th week of January. So hang on, folks. And then this is continuous cold air and troughing and a jet dip across the eastern U.S. throughout the rest of the run. Longest video I've ever made. For you folks to tune into all that, God bless you. But I hope you got a lot of information out of that. I'm not going to be as detailed on every video with that. We're going to kind of moderate this a little bit. Focus on what we know is going to happen. We're not going to do that every time. I just couldn't do it. I don't have the energy to do it. But we will kind of do a video like that every few days just to kind of get you guys prepared. But thankfully, we'll be past this storm this weekend in a couple days, and we won't have to talk about that anymore. We can solely focus on these 2 storm systems next week, and then eventually the Arctic air. God bless all y'all. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. Have a great start to your weekend.